What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit more like a podcast, very similar to the format we did a few months ago. And my very special guest is Mila Ferrer, and she is an all-around incredible person. She's a diabetes advocate for the Hispanic community and the Spanish-speaking community, and she's also a mom of a person with diabetes. And that person happens to be an amazing athlete and is starting his first season playing Division I baseball. So whether you also care for someone with diabetes, or you're an athlete, or you're just interested in hearing more about GVOKE HypoPen, this video is for you. And I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation. As a disclaimer, this video is sponsored by GVOKE HypoPen, which is a glucagon injection, so be sure to check the description and the end of the video for important safety information related to GVOKE HypoPen. Okay, that's enough of the intro. Let's get to the conversation with Mila Ferrer.
Hi, Mila. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Hola, Rob. I'm so happy to be here and looking forward to it.
Well, then let's dive right in. Can you give us a little bit of information and start this interview by telling us more about yourself and, of course, your family?
Awesome. Yeah, I was born in Puerto Rico, so we speak Spanish at home. I'm married. I have 3 young adults, and my youngest one, Jaime, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was 3. He's 18 already, so it's been a while now. It has been a very interesting journey. When you are first diagnosed, when your kid is diagnosed, you are really scared, really confused, and you feel like you're drowning in these abyss and just extremely confused. That's how I jumped into social media. Thankfully, at least Twitter and Facebook were out there, and I started meeting people, learning, asking questions. And actually, it helped us a lot as a family to learn how to manage Jaime's type 1. But it was everything in English. I wanted to speak in Spanish. I wanted that Latino flavor. So I decided to create a blog, which is called Jaime Mi Dulce Guerrero. In English, is Jaime My Sweet Warrior. And that's how it all started. And we have been enjoying supporting the family, listening to their stories, and also making sure that people feel that they're not alone in this journey.
And that's such important work, because I can speak from experience. Even if English is your first language, diabetes is extremely complex and very hard to learn about and to get on board with. So thank you so much for that really important work. And I know because of that blog and your advocacy for Jaime, it wasn't long before he really started chasing his dreams, and you became not only a type 1 diabetes mom, but a baseball mom as well.
A baseball mom with all my 3 kids. They all played, and just started his freshman year at Florida State. He's playing, he's enjoying his time, and it was a big challenge and a big change from what we were used to.
And you really undersold it. You're very humble. Jaime is an extremely talented athlete and is just starting his career, and we're definitely going to follow it with great interest. And technically, this isn't the first time that we met. We met a couple of years ago when we shared an Uber in Chicago. And of course, we had some fun small talk because your husband is a professional basketball legend, especially in Puerto Rico. And so we got to have some laughs about that. But today we're talking about the same thing that brought us together in Chicago, GVOKE HypoPen.
It is completely true. And I feel like we are very lucky that we have never, even though I keep learning about glucagon and what's going on and when to use it, we have never needed to use the glucagon. But that doesn't mean that we don't have one. Actually, we don't have one. We have 4 or 5. We have one at home, in his locker room, at his dorm. He carries one. The trainer has one. Why? Because I feel, and as a parent, I need for him to have that safety net. One of the first things that you learn when you start driving is to put on your seatbelt. Why? Because you're going to be a responsible driver, but you also need to make sure that you have something that it's going to save your life in case you need it. So for me, that's the glucagon. Having that glucagon, it's knowing that we have a safety net just in case something goes wrong and we need to inject and treat that severe low blood sugar.
I think that's a great analogy, and I don't think enough people talk about it like that. So I'm going to stick with that seatbelt analogy and that safety belt analogy here, as we continue to go forward, because nobody, the first thing that you do when you get in the car, the first thing you should do is to put on your seatbelt. And many people do that, but most of us don't think that I'm going to get in an accident today. Because the chances are we won't be in an accident, but we wear our seatbelt just in case, so that one time we get into an accident, we're safe.
Yeah, and even though we never need it, it's our safety plan. It's our backup. That one time where you were wearing your seatbelt and you got into a bad crash, that could be the difference between life or death. And that's that safety net that we always need. We can plan, we can do everything as we are taught, as we are taught by our doctors. But diabetes can also have their own plans. It's very complex, and we know that there are many, many things that we cannot control.
It's so true. And, I'm a person who I'm very tightly controlled with my diabetes. I feel like I'm in control and I manage it. And yet for many years, I never filled my glucagon prescriptions and I never carried it with me. And it wasn't until I learned about ready to use products like GVOKE HypoPen and they became available that my friends and I in the diabetes online community started talking more openly about glucagon. And I started carrying it with me when I travel and even in my everyday carry bag. And I keep a GVOKE HypoPen at my office. For me, like I think about, those conversations between friends, normalizing it, continuing to spread that awareness and to just talk more openly about glucagon. But how could we normalize that conversation a bit more for people who don't speak English?
So I think we have to make sure that in an ideal world, we would have like the information in multiple language, not only English and Spanish. We know that we have people that speak French, Portuguese. GVOKE HypoPen has illustrations, and it's really simple to look at them and understand them. They are very visual, they are very clear. So that person that might not be trained on glucagon before can look at that label and say, okay, these are the steps 1, 2, and that's it. We know that when we're under stress and treating someone that has a low severe blood sugar, that brings a lot of stress. Your nerves are on your way, and you don't have all those steps that you used to have before. And trust me, as a parent, that was one of my biggest fears. Like, would I be able to do that the right way? I know I'm gonna mess up. Oh my God, like, will he be okay after that? And now it's just 1 and 2 and we're done with it.
Yeah, it's so comforting to be able to look at the back of an instruction manual and see that 2-step administration, and that could be the difference in somebody's life.
It is. Like, I'm not sure about you, but I feel that when I'm low, like time really, really, really slows down. And I think making sure that you can do that as fast and as simple as you can, that's a life-changing for me.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to have that simple process, because not only can language be a barrier, and we know that diabetes doesn't discriminate on language or where you're from, but also when you're getting that severe low blood sugar brain and you've got a little bit of brain cloud, or you're frustrated, or you're nervous, or your adrenaline is spiking because you're in a severe low blood sugar situation. Like myself, I was at home alone and my blood sugar was dropping. And even after I had treated it with my gummy bears, it continued to drop. And I had to ask myself, like, is this my first time to use glucagon? Because up until that point, I had never used it before. And because it was simple, because it was straightforward, because of the graphical, instructions, I felt confident. I gave it to myself, and almost immediately my blood sugar started going back up.
And Rob, that is something that it hit me really hard. I think because I see it as a mom. When we went to these conferences and I started meeting other adults with type 1, they would say, oh no, I do not carry my glucagon with me. And for me, I was like, oh my God, like, as a mom, I wanted to say, please have your glucagon with you, because we know that things happen and we are going to do the best we can, but there are things that we cannot control, and we have to make sure that we have something that's going to help us on that severe low blood sugar.
And I think that's really important to talk about as well, because, you mentioned as a mom, when I was younger, my mom made sure that everywhere I went, there was glucagon. And then I grew up, which is great. That's such an awesome thing for people with diabetes now. We get to grow up and live our lives. And, at the same time, I wasn't as diligent because I was in my early 20s and I stopped refilling those prescriptions. And I think it's really important for us to talk about it, not only from a caregiver, but also from a patient standpoint. And I say it's important, to, as you're in that tight control and you're managing and you're counting all those carbs and you're managing your devices, you also need to have that glucagon seatbelt in your toolkit. Mila, I know you do a lot of work, not just personally with your blogs, but also professionally in the Hispanic diabetes community. Could you share a few resources for someone who's watching today where people can join the conversation or find a way to ask questions to better advocate for themselves and their family?
Sure. Anyone that has been touched by diabetes, type 1 or type 2, I think their main goal should be to keep learning as much as they can. And thankfully, we do have resources. We have Beyond Type 1 in Espanol, which is es.beyondtype1.org, and Beyond Type 2 in Espanol, which is esbeyondtype2.org. It's incredible to see how much content in Spanish resources, and not only Spanish, many other languages, it's getting created, because as you mentioned, type 1 diabetes and type 2, it's not only for people that speak English and Spanish, it's a worldwide disease.
It truly is. And you also bring up a great point, and I'm thankful that you mentioned Beyond Type 2 as well, because while Jaime and myself both live with type 1 diabetes, people who have type 2 diabetes and take insulin also need to make sure that they have glucagon available in case of a severe low blood sugar. So remember, if you're living on insulin and exogenous insulin, glucagon is something that you really should take a closer look at. Now, I want to shift gears just a little bit, because I know you just had to do one of the toughest type 1 mom things to do. And I'm speaking from experience because I remember when my mom went through it as well. You had to send Jaime off to school. He's living with roommates. He's, of course, playing high-level Division I baseball. How did you manage that transition from high school to college?
I think that transition, you never get over that, especially when you're a DMOM. But our main goal was to make sure that before he left our house, we had a plan. Like, we are planners. I like to have everything extremely organized. I think sometimes way too much. So what we did is that we looked at his possible schedule, and they're going to be traveling a lot. And we created checklists. Okay, if you're going to be out for 2 days, this is what you need. If you're going to be out for 5 days, this is what you need. And what we are trying to make sure is that Jaime understands that he needs to be organized and he needs to plan ahead. And what is going to be included in his diabetes bag, of course, glucagon, his insulin pumps, supplies, Dextrom, whatever he's using, he needs to make sure that he has the right amount. Because it's not like, okay, I am playing in Boston, hey, I ran out of insulin. No, that cannot happen. And we need to make sure that people with diabetes are planners, because you're an athlete. You know that if your friends call you, hey, Rob, we have a game, let's go and play. You have to make sure that, okay, I need to make sure my blood sugar is in range, check many, many factors, and then go ahead and do that. So what I want for him when he grows up into an adult is that he's very mindful. Okay, this is my diabetes bag. I have my insulin, I have my glucagon, I can go and have a good time, or go play and do whatever I want to do.
I think that's so important to think about, because I often say diabetes just adds one extra step to everything that you're doing, like you said, and maybe there's multiple steps. Like if I'm going to go play basketball, that I wasn't planning on doing it, I need to make sure that I've got everything that I need in order to be successful there. Or else, not only can you end up in a scary situation with a severe low blood sugar, but even if a minor low blood sugar can be extremely inconvenient. And making sure that you're prepared for that is essential. And it's funny you mentioned about travel, because I've been traveling again more often recently. And so I had to sit down and organize my diabetes supply drawer again, as well as my travel kit. So right now I'm using a Diabetic sleeve that I put in my carry-on bag. And these days it has glucagon in it. And previously, even that time that I traveled to Chicago where you and I met, I wasn't carrying glucagon at that time. And really it was because I wouldn't have had room with the old kit, but because GVOKE HypoPen is much more approachable and compact, it's something that, I can put in my bag and carry with me confidently wherever I go. And I think that's something that you have a very unique perspective on.
I do. I actually have severe allergies to everything and anything that exists. So I carry a pen in my bag. That's when I saw the prototype for the GVOKE HypoPen, I was extremely happy, because I was like, oh, that's something I can relate. And it's something that, as you mentioned, it doesn't take a lot of space. And we know that nowadays we want to make our lives much simpler, like less steps. Let's do things in a faster or safer way. So having my pen, for me, it's my seatbelt. I try to be very conscious of what I eat, but sometimes there are hidden ingredients that I don't know, or I can ask, or someone can make a mistake. So I know as a fact, because I used to volunteer at my kids' school, there are many kids with allergies nowadays, and which kids are allergic, what foods they are allergic to, and where their pen is. So for me, it was kind of shocking because Jaime had type 1. The school didn't want to keep his glucagon. So for me, it was like, why are they so hesitant to have something that's going to save his life, just like that pen's going to do for that kid, the other kids? And sometimes I think people think, or because we joke about having a low blood sugar, oh, I'll have a donut, or I'll get some juice or something sweet. People might not see it that it could be something potentially dangerous, and it is. I think that's one of our worst fears as parents, is a severe low blood sugar, and this is a very serious issue. That's why in my role as mom, that's why I advocate so much for everyone to have a glucagon. It's your safety net, it's your seatbelt. You don't want to use it, but you have to have it.
You do. And you bring up a great point, and I certainly am guilty of making lots of jokes about blood sugars within a very specific number, and it makes me laugh. But I do it because severe low blood sugars, and really all low blood sugars, are serious. And I never really thought until you brought it up that treating a low blood sugar with a candy or a juice box could make people view it more nonchalantly or make it seem like it's not so serious. But for anybody who's been in a scary low blood glucose situation like me, I'm sure you and Jaime have been through your fair share of low blood sugars that were, it's a tense moment. You guys can attest to how serious they are and how important it is to have the extra security, the extra safety belt that comes with carrying a ready-to-use glucagon like GVOKE HypoPen, especially when you find yourself with a dangerously low blood glucose. Like, for me, I was in my kitchen, I had some insulin on board, and my blood sugar was 39 with an arrow down. And that was a scary moment for me. And we also need to know that even though I can look at my devices and see that number, they don't prevent a low. I have to take action. And devices just help you monitor, but a severe low can still happen. So I'm glad that we have ready to use GVOKE HypoPen at our disposal these days.
And there are many things that you cannot control. So having that safety net by you and making sure that your family and friends know how to use it.
And I remember, my parents having conversations with my friends and having to explain all of the different steps with the old glucagon. And now I know that families are going to be having discussions with their friends of their children with diabetes, and caregivers are going to be having conversations with different family members about how to administer GVOKE HypoPen.
Jaime had that conversation with his trainer. So
that's excellent. Mila, thank you so much for your time today. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and I wish Jaime all the best in his upcoming season. I'm going to be definitely watching him.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If you are interested in GVOKE HypoPen or want to learn more, you can talk to your doctor or visit gvokeglucagon.com. I've linked it here in the description of the video. For those with commercial insurance, you can request a prescription for GVOKE HypoPen from home and have it delivered to your door. If you don't have insurance or are underinsured, GVOKE also offers a patient assistance program to help those who qualify get GVOKE. So check that out at gvokeglucagon.com.
Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Be sure to talk to, telehealth, or just plain visit your doctor to ask questions and learn more about GVOKE HypoPen. And all the links for the Spanish Beyond Type 1 and Beyond Type 2 resources are in the link description below, so be sure to check those out. You can also find Spanish language resources at gvokeglucagon.com. Just like with all prescription medications, you need to be aware of the side effects, including who shouldn't use GVOKE. So that important safety information is in the description. I'm also going to roll it at the end of this video, so stay tuned for those specifics. If you have any more questions, you can visit gvokeglucagon.com. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more amazing interviews with people with diabetes technology tips, and more. If you guys have questions for me about my experience using GVOKE HypoPen, please comment below and I will get back to each and every one of you. And that's all the time I've got today. Peace, y'all.